Hey, top of the morning. Peasant, it's time for me to do a 10-minute condensed version of the theory I just released. Because I know not everyone has freaking app. Oh, let's start again. No, just kidding. Not everyone has an hour, so I'm going to try to do this as quickly as I can. And after just watching, finally, the Rebirth trailer, like I say, there's nothing in there that debunks this theory. In fact, actually, something in that kind of supports it. The reference to it being a dream. So it looked like it was one of the ancient Cetra spirits saying we're looking to be released from this dream, essentially, that they're tired. Very, very Final Fantasy X Dream of the Faith-esque. And that's what my theory has been about, that there's a dark dream weaver, that this concept of dream weaving is very, very prevalent, and it's been sewed in there. And that there's been a wild card played in by Sephiroth, a clone 49, I think, but honestly it could be anyone. Whether or not it is Marco, I think that lost number, being that this was the only other failed clone that we've never seen. It's the only one that didn't have a tattoo. Just as the Ultimania says, it was a person. He's another victim of Hojo's Sephiroth copy experiments, and we can hypothesize or guess that it was actually one of the first. And that it was so crude and it was so rudimentary, the experimentation, that they didn't even bother to number it, and they just locked it in. This 6 foot by 6 foot safe, like a person. And that would be so dark. I mean, how dark is that, locked inside of a safe? And that there's a theme, a very strong theme throughout all of Final Fantasy VII, that isolation kind of exacerbates and strengthens the Genova cells. And not just makes the Genova cells stronger, but also makes the individual far more twisted, far more maniacal, and none clearer than Sephiroth in the basement. Right? It was him being down there, days and days and days. Like it says in the game, the lights never went out, and in that isolation, twisted Sephiroth from being someone who was actually not that bad, and obviously he was a war criminal and a murderer.
Not listening. I'm not listening.
But he wasn't, I'm gonna come and burn your entire village level of nuts. It was in the isolation that we saw the real evil in him somewhat manifest. So what would that mean for something like Lost Number? A Sephiroth copy that is so far gone, not only does it look like that, but also they acquired the abilities of dream weaving. And that's why we saw Marco in Final Fantasy VII Remake into Genova Dreamweaver. It's also why we know it was Marco who was walking the corridor, as hinted to us by Palmer, who had just seen Sephiroth. And we know from Marco's position being the Dreamweaver in the office that we fight, that it was likely, almost definitely him who was there in the VR sequence, close to the VR machine, that he was the clone that was in that sequence. And that entire trip out that we saw, again, another Dreamweave, another world of illusion created by Lost Number, as per my theory, and one that was geared towards psychologically tormenting Cloud, because of course we saw Tifa and Barrett die in that VR, and it fits the MO of Lost Number. It is exactly what Lost Number has done before. To show you that, we need to go to Before Crisis. Before Crisis, where the Nibelheim resettlement program is being orchestrated, which is, to cover up that the village was burned and to put fake actors into the city. Now, this is being orchestrated by ex-leader of the Turks, the one before song, Verdot, otherwise known as Veld, and he orchestrates the documents, the incriminating ones, in the mansion to be burned and destroyed, because it's a cover-up, so there's a lot of evidence that needs to be done away with. And you, as player Shotgun, who you playing Before Crisis, you go in there, she has a snoop around, she even learns about Veld's prosthetic arm. There's an experiment done by Hojo, the one with the materia slot in, and that's what Verdot and his daughter Elf underwent, and eventually, of course, Vincent was the final product of that. And the other cool detail about that is that there was only one other time that Vincent woke up in the basement, and it was during Before Crisis. Verdot goes into the basement, Vincent wakes up, and then you discover that they were old colleagues. They were the Reno and Rude of the Turks back in the day, so they are allies, they are friends, and I think it would be amazing for Verdot to be brought back in the story, even if it's just for what the interaction with Vincent would be like. After some of those documents are burned, Verdot and Shotgun, they head down into the basement, into the laboratory, Hojo's lab, in the bottom of the basement, and all of a sudden, as you're looking around, suddenly they step into Sector 8. They're stepped into an entire illusory dream world, and they're deeply confused about how the hell they got there, which implies how strong, how realistic, how indistinguishable from reality this sudden illusion was. And it takes a second, but Vido realizes, oh, this is Sector 8. This is the day that I try to crush Avalanche, try to crush the Ravens. And it's there to try to torment Vido over his actions of murdering people, and he doesn't feel any remorse in that moment. Of course not, because he sees Avalanche as the enemy and he was just doing Shinra's bidding. So the illusion gets twisted again. All of a sudden, a voice shows up in the form of Shadow Vido. His form hears, and Shotgun actually fights it, and the illusion twists again to suddenly. I'm really stumbling over my words. I'm so pumped. My adrenaline is still rushing from that trailer. It suddenly twists to Calm, the day when Calm was burning, and it was actually Vido who accidentally, but still by his hand, directed some Shinra missiles that destroyed the village, and Vido believed that it was his hands that killed his daughter and his wife. And see Shadow Vido show up again and is basically psychologically tormenting him with it. And this scene was so small. It was such a small chapter, a chapter called In a Dream, by the way. It kind of passed over everyone's heads and it passed over mine, but then when I got digging into what that thing was, you discover it was Lost Number. That was Lost Number. On the safe in the mansion, that big purple and reddish ghoulish thing that we fight, it was him that actively created a dream weave and used the Genova abilities by itself autonomously. And we've never seen anyone but Sephiroth being able to do that. So Lost Number being able to do that is massively significant because it shows both a gift, like a special, unique, rare gift. It also shows a power level, and it shows a will of its own that is strong enough to utilize the Genova cells, and that is a powerful concoction. I can only see it being amazing if they brought Lost Number back into the story in a different context, and I do think that context could potentially be Marco, that Sephiroth went to the safe, brought out Lost Number, gave it a tattoo, 49, gave it a higher purpose, planted it in the care of Tifa, and that is exactly why Marco was the one who became Genova Dreamweaver, because Lost Number was the Dreamweaver. That's why Sephiroth went to all the effort to explicitly extract Marco after the fight. Took his body up. And you could say his body, or you could say a limb of Genova. But even if that limb is just unique in the sense that it's been in the form of Marco or Lost Number, a piece of cellular DNA, and that's become so saturated with the will of Lost Number that it has a specific potency, a lean towards dream weaving. And of course, Sephiroth in this 5D chessboarding of trying to deceive and elude our characters, he would have massive use for the dreamweaving ability, and that it's highly possible that Marco Lost Number gets unleashed again with his dreamweaving abilities and with his penchant for psychological torment into the Rebirth. And yes, that indeed could be Roby McBeardington, the guy that we saw at the Junon airport. I think that would be amazing because, coincidentally enough, just like when the trailer says the shadows of the man, they call him, there's a bonus mission with Lost Number in Before Crisis where Lost Number is described as the shadow, and you chase the shadow, you follow the shadow, you fight the shadow. Shadows of the Man, I don't know if that was also a theme that was in OG, like the shadows, but basically Square Enix have definitely pointed that reference directly to Lost Number, and in Lost Number's bonus mission you can get a treasure chest, and the password for the treasure chest is Junon Airport. I was like, what? But Biddy McRobington at Junon, maybe that's him. And then I started thinking to who else I thought that Biddy McRobington could be, and it could be Veld. He does have that little goatee, Verdo, and it could be the real Verdo. But why is Biddy McRobington in this? Why is he in a cloak? Clearly supposed to suggest to us, Veld clones, alliance with the Genova side of things, and that, it could just be Lost Number still walking about in Verdo's form. And not only would that be a way and a means to trick Rufus or the Turks, or to have some sort of play on them, something we just saw in the trailer. We saw somebody walking in those robes, and we saw Rufus actively, viscerally react to it. There was recognition there, clearly, significantly. I'm pondering over who would Rufus know, and it fits with Verdo. And when I looked even deeper into Now, what happened to Vidot after Before Crisis? It turns out, yeah, he's been positioned gathering information, intel from all the Turks around the world about planetary threats, and that would definitely play him in. And that in Dirge of Cerberus, Reeve Tuetzi, before he forms the WRRO, the World Regenesis Organization, before he does that, he links up with Vidot. He goes and meets Vidot in, can you guess where? Junon! They meet in Junon! And between Vidot on the Turk side and Reeve on essentially the Avalanche side, they collaborate to essentially form a unit that will respond to any planetary threats. And of course, in the world of chaos, in this messed up world that Sephiroth has created, the threats are even greater. So to think Vidot would come back into the story and they meet all at Junon, bruh. And then finally, just as I was like convinced, wow, lost number Vidot Marco theory, like it could be a thing. Yes, I started looking at lost numbers like weird design, the half red, the half purple. Then I looked at Marco's concept art. I mean, what's this? And I personally was mind blown. Mind blown. I was like, I've done it. I've unlocked the secrets of the universe. Why else would he have these tassels, these ribbons? Me and Brie, we sat and we pondered and we contemplated over it for ages. Anywhere else where red and blue is a significant theme, couldn't come up with anything else, and I was convinced. But then one of you smart buggers, you said, that could just be an artist prompt, because of course the way that these ribbons wrap around is kind of like artistically a bit complex, and for consistency you need to know where each ribbon folds, so marking it specifically with colours that stand apart, be able to see how it folds around. I was like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty legit. That sounds very logical. I think you got a point there. I think that debunks my idea that that was absolutely confirming with Marco. But just curious if it is like just an artist prompt that they did do it with Marco, because it does have 49 in. For me, it just goes to show a lot of thought gone into Marco, that he does have a significant role to play. There is a reason why he's been planted in Tifa's care where Cloud should have been, and that I absolutely think there's more to see with this character, with this particular failed clone. I mean, I think with all the failed clones in the Rebirth and beyond, and that's more or less the tenets of the theory. That lost number Marco is exclusively a one who can weave dreams of illusion, and that Cloud could end up picking up on that same gift himself. I already think we've seen Cloud starting to dreamweave. I won't go to all the areas because they're just so numerous, but the other area where I said it would be significant if Marco does regenerate and becomes able to actually walk and talk and express and move, and that if he's also been Marco, then he's intimately going to know Tifa, and that the psychological torment that we saw him play with Veld against his wife and daughter, if Lost Number does the exact same thing between Cloud and Tifa. And now we saw in the latest trailer Cloud completely buying in to the idea of those we love, those we fear. He picks up his sword and he looks like he's gonna go and try and kill Tifa. Now let's be real, it could be Genova Tifa. Cloud could be right, or he could be gravely wrong. And this dreamweaving concept, when I started thinking where it could go with Marco Lost Number, main purpose is for him to destabilize the relationship between Cloud and Tifa. And I kind of had it in my head that he could even go and manipulate, when we have the memory sequence, Tifa goes into Cloud's mind and we visit various locations, that Marco could step in, he could twist those worlds. He has the ability to blur the lines between reality and illusion to where it's indistinguishable, and that is exactly the kind of trippy psychological thriller theme that I really want to see, and I'm so excited that trailer kind of points towards this is the direction. But there's the theory. How did I do? Did I make it in 10 minutes? I mean, there's no chance. No. At the moment it's at like 17 minutes. It's a wee bit shorter than an hour, lads, and that'll do nicely. Let me know what you think. Do you think there's actually any chance that Lost Number could be back? I mean, it would be really cool if the way he's revealed to us is that when we actually get to the mansion, we put the code in and we're expecting the Lost Number fight, instead of him coming out of the safe, is that he then just appears in the doorway behind us, and that's when we learn, and that's when we hear about the super dark fucked up stuff that happened to him. I do think he was the first of the Sephiroth clones, because before Lost Number torments Vidot says that there's been a long history of dark stuff happening in this mansion, and being that was when the Nibelheim resettlement program was trying to be made, what we know is that Lost Number predates the clones that were created out of Nibelheim villagers, he predates that considerably. And that, yeah, there's other individuals, the people who got kidnapped from the slums. That's why the Neighborhood Watch was made. That's why all of that, Sector 7 underground laboratory was made to greatly increase and pump up the number of Sephiroth clones. It has been quadrupled, essentially. Yeah, there's loads more details in the hour-long version about what happened during those events, and I can feel myself tumbling into it, and this is why I can never do short-form videos. But thanks so much for watching. Till the next video.